And welcome everyone to the April meeting of the Big Hole Watershed Committee. Coming to you live from the Divide Grange Hall. Ooh, that looks awful red. Well, I know. I was green in a conference call a couple of weeks ago. Now I'm red, so we'll just go with it. That's how we roll. Not going to deal with tech issues now. So we will start as we always do. I'll go around the room so everyone knows who everyone is. My name is Pedro Marquez. I'm the Executive Director of the Big Hole Watershed Committee. We'll go around this way. Eddie Bowler from Butte. Tom Bowler from Butte. Peter Burch from Jackson.
Jim Hagenberth from Glen. Mark Rafke from Glen.
Paul Clary from Glen.
Jared Payne, FWP.
Diane Hyden from Wisdom.
Jim Denny, Butte-Silver Bow Water Utility. Craig Christopherson, I live in Dillon.
Andy Smith, Glen.
I'm Ben Laporte, I'm the Programs Manager for the Big Hole Watershed Committee.
I'm Tana Alphen, the Associate Director of the Watershed Committee.
You don't get a pass for sitting in the back. Nice try. Nice try though. Mark Cambridge, Divide. Untitled Wisdom.
Amber Burch, Beaverhead County.
Mike Mooney, BLM out of Dillon. John Moodry, thank you. And for those of you that haven't seen the mic before, we do it so that folks on Zoom can hear what's going on. Otherwise, they wouldn't know what the conversation's about. And from Zoom land, you've got, I see a Jan Bowey, Allegra Sundstrom, and Perry Sinnerin. Oh.
Actually, it's Andy on Perry's computer, Pedro.
Andy, hello, welcome.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to go through and do the hydro report. Matt Norberg could not be with us. So I will quickly kind of summarize what's in his report. This will be in the minutes, so you can all read through it more closely. Do you have the report to share? So folks can follow along. So all the stream gauges are on and reporting. I will say we have a bill from the USGS for, try to get this, make sure I get this right, for the temperature readings on 3 gauges. So that's our commitment that we've made. The DNRC, since they took over the management of the temperature on some of those same gauges and on some of the CCAA gauges, they're actually covering those costs now. So our stream gauge bill just got cut in half, looks like from now moving forward. And I'll be presenting that bill to George Grant Trout Unlimited tomorrow. That's something that they might be real interested in paying for to make sure that those gauges are reporting. So it's just a tangent there, side note. So NRCS is reporting precip in the Big Hole at 95% of median. The median snowpack date was April 17th. And the Big Hole peaked at 88%, so we've gained quite a bit in just this last event. So hopefully we're not done building snowpack. Snow water equivalent is 91% of the 1991 to 2020 median conditions. Important to remember that that's the new 30-year average, right? Last year, we were comparing averages to the previous 30 years, which I don't have the data, but I think everything was wetter. So our baseline is slightly lower than normal. We're above where we were last year in terms of snowpack and total precip. Recent storm systems have definitely helped bring up SWE, and cooler temperatures have subsided runoff. Satellite imagery, hypsometry is showing a better snowpack picture with 101% of normal from 2004 to current. Dark Horse Snowtail is 91%. Calvert Creek is 2%, yeah, gone. Basically melted out about 1.5 weeks earlier than last year. The remaining representative big hole snowtail sites are 91 to 102%. And you can see that pretty clearly in the graph of what this latest snowpack did. Can you scroll it up just a little bit, just to show that image? And you can really see that bump. We were kind of heading into really scary territory until this event. So that's all good. Hopefully it eases some stress, but you know, we're still a long ways away. The rest is graphs. And then the kind of drought status, we were upgraded to D2 in Beaverhead and Deerlodge counties. Silver Bow still in D3. And that's severe as opposed to extreme. And we're not in exceptional drought. Okay. The 8 to 14 temperature outlook predicts below average temps and near normal to slightly above precip. So that's real good. And seasonally, transition to equal to slightly above normal temperatures and below normal precip. The remaining summer months are predicted to be increasingly warmer and drier. Water users should expect shortages during the late spring, summer months, all dependent on air temps and precip. While current conditions are trending in the right direction, the prolonged forecast could mimic last year's hot, dry conditions. La Nina is favored to continue through the northern hemisphere. Summer, 59% chance during June to August. So, all right. If you have questions, I probably can't answer them, but are there any? Okay. Next up, we'll go to the drought management plan. Yeah. So we sent out to the board, so the Drought Management Committee approved the updated drought management plan. No major changes to any of our trigger levels or anything like that. What we did change is we simplified the document, combined some sections. We added some recommended voluntary fishing restrictions that are just kind of best practices. And that came out of committee. And so we need the governing board to adopt the new drought management plan so we can put it into place. So with that, can we put it to a vote? All those, or is there a better process?
I just want to clarify, when you said we combine sections of the written plan, not any of the actual sections.
Yes, thank you. There was a lot of redundancy in the language that took up extra pages. So we just kind of made it simpler. Yeah, so everybody on the drought subcommittee approved the plan. So it's now up to the board to just vote on it. So everyone in favor of adopting the new drought management plan? Anyone against is better. Any issues? Okay, hearing none, and we've got a quorum, so we will adopt the new drought management plan. Thanks for that. Okay, I'm going to move on to my report, which unfortunately, the version of my updated report is sitting on my computer at home and apparently didn't save, and so I can't pull it up here. So instead of showing you my report from last month, I will just talk about my report. The first up, kind of related to drought management, is we were awarded a DNRC watershed management grant. So that's a 2-year, basically just capacity funding, and it's all revolves around our drought management work and some of the other initiatives that we're trying to do around getting the word out and public education around drought. So one of the, on the back table there's an infographic that we've been working on. it's basically it's ready to go short of any comments that this group would have. It needs some logo stuff on the bottom. The wording is just a draft of what the wording should be. I'm hoping to get any feedback or comments from you all. The idea with this infographic is having it available, having it up at fishing access sites across the Big Hole. The general message is for folks to know that this river is a shared resource with everybody. You know, we all benefit from it being in good condition. We all suffer when it's not in good condition. And, you know, cooperation in our drought management plan are the ways that we kind of try to manage the resource. It's a good plan. It's better than everything else that could happen on the river. So we're just trying to convey to the public that all of these different users use water on the river. And hopefully that message is well received, and it just gives people a sense of the work that we do also. There will also be a little QR code or a way that folks can, if they want to contribute to the conservation fund that we're running, that's money that will go directly into the types of restoration projects that Ben's running. So, you know, improving the resource into the future. So that draft is, feel free to grab one of those in the back there. And if you have any comments, send them to us just via email or approach us after the meeting or in the break and let us know if there's anything you want to see as far as language there that might be missing or something that you don't want to see in there. Again, the language is just drafts of the ideas I want to get across, and you guys can help me refine that. The other map that's back there, that's in the back, this is something that we've been working on with GM Environmental, who are producing, and this is just a map that we want to have, you know, circulated and out and about in the community, really just representing the whole of the watershed. It's not a river map, it's not a fishing map, it's not specific to any recreational use, it's just kind of, this is the whole watershed. And it also, we have a dot on the map for every project we've done in the 27-year history of the organization. As many of the dots on the map that I could actually find a place to put a dot. There's a lot of projects that we've done that were, you know, studies or assessments that aren't tied to a specific point on the map. So those aren't on there, obviously, but as a kind of a way to summarize, memorialize the first 25 years of this organization, what we've been able to accomplish. There's a total number of dollars that we've been able to invest into the resource and some kind of information there. So that is also up for edit, comment, anything that you all see, anything that's missing from the map, any location that you think should be on there that isn't, if there's a stream on there that doesn't have a name on it, those types of things, we're open to those edits as well. Okay, further on, talking about just kind of public, just understanding of our work. Hopefully you all have seen the articles that have come out in the Martin Standard. That we didn't know exactly when they were going to come out, but they've been out. I think there's some printed copies in the back if you haven't seen them, but they're worth a read. I'll leave it at that. There's not really much to comment unless someone has something to say. I will jump now real quick. The next thing I want to put on everybody's radar, June 1st at 6 p.m. down at the depot in Dillon. So y'all remember that filmmaker, Laura Tomov, that came down around, interviewed a bunch of people, really is trying to tell the story of the Watershed Committee, the work that we do, all the people involved. From everything I've seen, she's done a fabulous job with this film. It's called, it's part of a series called Life in the Land. And she did 4 30-minute documentaries, one on the Big Hole, one on the Blackfeet, one in the Sealy Swan, and the other one's in the Mussel Shell. So all 4 of those films are going to be released pretty soon. The first full-length viewing of our film, and they'll also show the Blackfeet film, will be at the depot in Dillon on June 1st. So we'll have a table down there as an organization and hope very much to see a lot of you down there. There'll be a Q&A session with folks that were filmed, that were in the movie. So, you know, Jim, myself, hopefully others will be down there and participate. Eric Thorson, I invited to make sure he's down there because he's in the film representing the guides and anglers. So that'll just be a really great event to see as many of you as possible down there. They plan to do a question and answer, you know, after the screenings of the 2 films with us and representatives from the Blackfeet Nation that'll be there as well. So that promises to be a good time. So put on your calendars, hopefully see you all there. A 15-minute version of that film is going to be shown as part of the International Wildlife Film Festival. That will be screened on Monday in Missoula, and I'll be part of a panel discussion after that one. And she just did like a shorter 15-minute edit of the same film. Okay, I think that's it for public stuff. And then I will say that the ARPA funding they ranked the projects, as you all know. You know, we put in a good bit of time trying to get a bunch of headgate structures fixed. So we put in for a big grant and we were not very successful with it. So we were, I think the recommendation was for $50,000. We asked for 10 times that. Apparently they thought that we needed more design. So headgates need designs, apparently. So the way that we went about it was just getting a contractor out, estimating the costs and giving us material and labor costs. And we put that in, and apparently that wasn't satisfactory. So, and that was the good thing is we've got all these projects now. We've got agreements, you know, landowners are willing. We've at least sketched them out. So we'll take that money and take those projects to the next step of development. And then there are other pots of money out there specific for irrigation. We'll go back to those pots of funding, and there's a good chance that this ARPA money will have a second round, I hope. So I'm not going to give up on it. And we had 6 different landowners, and there's room for more. As you all have these issues come up, the more projects we can kind of get shovel ready, the easier it's going to be to bring in the money. So my understanding of what shovel ready was for an irrigation project apparently was not accurate. So I'll take that one for the team, sorry. And that's it for my report. I know there were some pretty pictures in my slide, but I can't show you. Anyone else? No? Any questions? Okay. We'll go to steering committee. We met. You guys got something to say? Yeah.
Yep, everything's going great. Pedro and the crew are doing a good job. So continue on.
Okay. All right. Uh-oh.
Maybe it's not as great as I thought.
We had a great meeting, covered a lot of issues, recognizing we've got inflation, recognizing that the federal government won't want to take up, won't want to pay us what we're worth. I want to keep us where we're at. So we instructed Pedro to be pretty tough on them, make them understand that, you know, our dollars don't go as far. And it's important to be pretty tough when we deal with those folks, because we're not going to work for nothing.
So I did go, we were talking a lot about the rates that we bill ourselves out at our grants, and it kind of depends on the grant and the agency. Some of them won't let us, they literally hand us our proposals back if we bill ourselves out at too high a rate. And that, you know, when you get 11% inflation over the last 3 years, that kind of hits the pocket. So we're looking at everywhere we can bump up the value of our services on all the work that we do, so that we're not eating that inflation cost. So that was important. Not the kind of thing I kind of think about until these guys steer me in the right direction. So appreciate that. All right, steering committee's done. Oh, okay. Sorry, one major thing. These are fun. We should pass these around. Potential off-stream reservoir sites in the Big Hole River Basin, 1978 DNRC. Water storage in the Big Hole, a recommendation, 1981 DNRC. Big Hole water storage, scoping review and water management review, final report, reservoir storage alternatives, 2005. And then floodplain management study. This one's maybe a little less relevant, but I have been tasked with going back to these. And the message is we took no a little bit too quickly. So there's options, there's potential, and we need to explore for the long term of water in the river. Storage is one of the ways to get there. It's not an easy way, and I volunteer myself as a punching bag for the next 15 years until we get there. But that's kind of I'm joking, but we're going to go back into these reports. There's some pots of money out there that we could get to get a consultant and some engineers or whoever it is that would be needed to go back into these places and really start thinking more seriously about reservoir storage in the Big Hole for the long-term sustainability of what we got here. So that's a big new task for me, which means other little things will just have to drop off, but we'll get there. So if anyone has ideas, thoughts, comments, I'm all ears. This is going to be quite a ride, I think. Okay, now I'm done, totally done. Dan, is it you, wildlife?
All right, I don't have too much for wildlife today. I just wanted to give a quick reminder that we're still doing carcass removal throughout the Big Hole. So to set up carcass pickup, just call John Costa, the numbers there. It's also on our website. You can reach out to me. You can text carcass to 26989 for more information or to contribute to the program. And we do this just to prevent and or reduce conflicts with wildlife by removing predatory tracking from local ranches. And then, so Pedro and I have spent some time recently chatting with some people about wildlife crossings and collisions. And well, first Pedro met with Eric Olson, a couple of people down on his property to talk about some issues he's had down there. And then we met via Zoom with Deb Wambach from MDT and Daniel Anderson with Yellowstone Safe Passages. And really we've just been talking with MDT about their process for dealing with carcasses and collisions and their process for recording the data and keeping that data set. And then so we're gonna have Deb come and talk about this later in the year, but MDT is creating heat maps with their data. And they have this interactive map that they're coming out with that's pretty neat, and you'll see more about that later. But we, and Pedro, maybe you can help me with this, but we just been kind of talking about if there's a need, we'd like to get some feedback from you guys about issues in the Big Hole with collisions with wildlife. Do you think it's an issue? Are you having issues near your place? And just kind of your thoughts on that. So
Yeah, no, that's the gist. I mean, there's a lot of interest in other regional groups that we talk to about wildlife passage, right? And highway infrastructure is always the thing that they come up against. And it was interesting just diving into the issue a little bit, because you see where, you know, if, like we just saw a great example of, if you're out there and you see a deer in the road and you move it off the road, if it doesn't get seen, or if the folks that, you know, scrape the carcasses off the road don't log that, it doesn't register as a point, as a conflict, as a collision in the DOT system. And so it doesn't look like it's a problem in that area. So if you imagine a stretch of highway, they've got every road in Montana down to the mile, and they've got a set of criteria that scores that stretch of road, you know, bright red or yellow if it's not an issue, or green if it's not an issue at all, based on volume of traffic and movement of animals, and they're coordinating with FWB on this. So there's a process and a system in place. And you know, through this exercise, we came to realize how some well-intentioned efforts on the ground, they don't register in this process, and so it doesn't look like a problem. And that was illuminating, but it just brought up, you know, there's parts of the state where folks are working, like the Paradise Valley, they're working really intensely to try to resolve some of the collision issues that they're having there with elk, all kinds of animals on that highway. So they're going down the process of gathering local support for a solution, and then they would propose something like what you see, like bridges or underpasses, overpasses, that type of thing. Just got us thinking, is that an issue? Is that something that we want to pursue here in the Big Hole? So let's just kind of.
First, you gotta do is cut the speed limit down. It's because the goddamn snowplow goes down the road, and I live right on the road. Oh, it's good. You know, I've taken out property moose off right in front of my house. It's stupid if they go too goddamn fast, for the language for that stuff. And it should be not over 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Not only from here to Wiser, but all the way up and through.
Yeah, so that's a corridor there. There's a lot of animal crossing in that stretch. So they say, what Daniel told us is, they say that speed, if you don't get below 45 miles an hour, speed is not going to make any difference to the number of collisions that you have. That's what the data shows. If you don't get folks driving less than, if you don't, you know, if you go from 65 to 45, you see a drop in number of collisions and accidents. The economics are really interesting. When you reduce wildlife collisions, what that economically means in saved, you know, people not taking days off work, people not having $10,000 bills to fix their cars, right? All that adds up. So in the right places, there's a lot of arguments to be made for addressing wildlife vehicle conflict. Paying attention. Yeah.
So it says wildlife crossing, you better be watching, but people don't.
They don't. And also what we heard, right, is that signage doesn't work.
Yes, self-government. You shouldn't have to look at signs.
Yes. Yes.
You should be able to govern yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think hoping that people self-govern is tricky.
People, maybe they could put a speed bump in every time there's a animal crossing sign, you know, all through the whole state. Sleeping policemen, as they call them in England.
Right.
Opportunity, and everybody's still the time.
Yeah, there's an issue.
So I'm kind of responsible for Pedro going down this rabbit hole. What was happening is, when the interstate goes through by my house, I've always had a few moose dead, which I hate to see happen, but I also hate to see it for the people who hit them. But really, what the problem was is, we get a lot of deer kill there, and my guard dogs crawl over the fence to get on the deer. First they guard them, and then after they're cold enough, they eat them. And if they go on the road, you know, somebody's going to swerve and get themselves killed. And so what I've been doing is what Pedro's talking about. I've been skewing the data for about 2.5 years. I go out there every morning and I pick up the dead deer in that stretch, and I haul them back and toss them in the dumpster. And that keeps my dogs off there. Well, I've got GPS trackers on those dogs, so if I miss one, pretty soon I know where they're at, and I have to go do it again. But I'm on the board of another NGO, and they've been talking about these damn wildlife crossings for 10 years, and they haven't accomplished a damn thing. And everybody wants to build a $20 million overpass. And if I could build a $20 million overpass that would let the Elkhorn County over across to the other side of the river, that'd be great, but my neighbor wouldn't be very happy with me. So my thought, I came up with a fairly simple design to exclude wildlife from the short stretch of well at a fairly cheap thing. And I just started rounding up people from Fish and Game and MDOT, and I called Pedro and a couple other people, and that's kind of how we ended up here. And I just got a call the other day that it looks like it's been funded, but it's mostly fencing. It's pretty cheap, a little bit of design in there. And they have to, and I kind of looked at it, I'm looking at that fence, and it's, mostly put that in 72, so it's about aged out. It was time to change it. So I thought, well, this would be a good time. And so relatively, it'll be a fairly cheap project now. Whether or not we can expand that to other places in the watershed, or whether it needs to be done, I don't know. But I got this started for purely selfish reasons, and I tried to do it a smart way, in a cheap way, and that's why we're here.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick. Yeah. I'm happy to follow rabbit holes too, if it's something that's of interest. So unless there's, needed discussion on the topic, I'll just kind of let it sit. Just know that we're here as a sounding board if folks are having these issues, and we'll bring Deb in because the data set and the way that they're doing it is pretty fascinating, and it's worth a talk, down the road.
Oh, it's Jim.
Anything else wildlife related? Okay. Then Ben's gonna do the restoration report.
All right, guys. Well, yeah, my update's fairly similar to last month. My workload really consisted of a lot of project planning, getting our 2022 restoration projects on the ground, and then looking into 2023. It's taken up some time, but that's what's needed to get these projects on the ground. So I'll touch on a couple of the highlights this month. One of them being that Pedro and Tan and I got our BLM participating agreement application into the BLM, and this is something that we've been working on for about 2 years now. We finally got it in, and that was a little bit on my plate. But essentially, this is a funding mechanism to provide BLM the capacity, the much needed capacity to support, to actually plan, coordinate, work through the logistics, and ideally implement some restoration projects that they've already identified in the Eastern Pioneers and the Rochester Creek subwatershed. So both of those subwatersheds have environmental assessment documents that we're using as a guide to essentially navigate this agreement. So it's going to be a very nice complement to the work that we're doing with the Nature Conservancy already in the Eastern Pioneers. And a lot of that work is, again, this low tech process-based restoration, in-stream structures, and a lot of that in-stream enhancement and restoration, and maybe we'll get some wetland mesic enhancement projects out of it, and then we're going to really hone in on conifer encroachment. So yeah, I'm hopeful that we get it and some fruitful projects coming of this, and it's a 5-year agreement. So my understanding is that hopefully we can build on this first initial agreement and really get some good work done on the ground. So that was a win for us this month. I also have just been moving the ball forward on the Elkhorn Mine and Mill. I met with Pioneer Technical out of Butte, who are the folks who are going to be doing the soils characterization. We had a kickoff meeting with them to essentially, get the ball moving on that. So looking forward to that. Will happen later this summer. Another really neat thing that came out of this month was Pedro and I toured the folks, Montana Bioagriculture Incorporated. We went toured their lab, and they're the folks who are doing this biofilter mycelium project for us on Elkhorn. And yeah, it's really cool. It's really fascinating. It was a stimulating visit. And I don't have a video pointer here. I'll do the best I can to explain this in a very in simple terms here. But essentially what they're doing is they're using this ground up corn cobs as the medium for the mycelium, the mushrooms to grow on. So it's basically a benign substance that they needed, and they chose these ground up corn cobs. And what they're doing is they're growing mushrooms, mycelium. It's actually the particular mushroom that they're using is called rhizopus. And this is a photo that we took in their lab. And this is just some of the corn cobs that haven't been, I guess, inundated with the mushrooms. And then here's kind of the mushroom mat of mycelium that's just soaked in all over the corn cobs. And so in basic terms, what they're doing is they're stuffing this corn cob mushroom growth into these cylinders, and they're running the Elkhorn acid mine drain water through it. So they're pumping it up through the bottom. It's filtering all the metals out, and it's coming out, and this is kind of the byproduct of the lab study. And my understanding is that it took them about 3 or 4 cycles of them pumping the acid mine drainage through one of these cylinders to get some clean water coming out of it. So they told us it is working. The assays that they are working on right now, they were just looking at calcium, I believe, the ions in the water.
Yeah.
And they have different assays that they bought essentially to measure how much of that ion is left in the water after they run through the filter. And so it's working. And the whole idea is for them to learn what they're doing in the lab and then scale it up and then install it up at Elkhorn this year. And that's kind of the next big phase, is that I think they're gonna, these are 3-inch PVC pipes, and I believe they're gonna use 6-inch PVC pipes to go install it in the attic and see what comes out. Hopefully it's clean water coming right out of the filter. So really excited about that. Elkhorn's going to be pretty busy this summer.
Talk about positive. So it's mycelium has a negative charge. Metals are positively charged. So it's a simple adsorption that happens where the positively charged ions they just stick to the mycelium. And so the water keeps going, the metals stick to the substance. And then they're gonna develop it in a way that you could remove a section of these cylinders out, remove the solid, and the next step potentially is you could low ash fire that whole solid mass, all of the carbon leaves, and you're left with like just metal dust, basically. So for remediation, what that does is it reduces the volume of what you have to either bury or deal with in some other way, right? In the current remedy, there's a big waste rock pile. It's just this huge pile of waste rock. That's still leaching, groundwater is still leaching out of there, and there's still metals coming out of it. This technology basically just is a way of reducing all of the metals, because metals don't go anywhere, right? Laws of thermodynamics, like it's still there, you still gotta do something with it. So the best thing you can do is reduce it to the smallest possible volume to then be able to treat it. And then the creative part, in the absence of more acid mine drainage, they were very careful with how much, because they only had 2 of those carboys of water that we'd gotten for them. they created their own acid mine water. They have the metal compounds, and they just created their own solution that matches the acid mine drainage. So now they have as much of that stuff as they need to keep running tests. So they're really gonna start ramping up now. But anyway, these guys, we geeked out quite a bit on this stuff.
Yeah, it was great. And again, I think that the whole idea here is just, it's awesome to learn about. It's sweet, but ideally this could potentially be part of the remedy and the restoration and work it into the design up at Elkhorn. We don't know what that looks like yet, but that's why we're kind of running down this path with this mycelium stuff. Pedro and I, moving on to Anaconda Uplands, we had some really productive meetings with NRD and EPA. DEQ was there. We had another meeting that FWP was involved in, basically just making sure that we're kind of driving down the right lane with our 2022 work that we have planned. A lot of the performance monitoring, want to make sure that we're kind of in compliance with what EPA wants to see. So that was productive. And we also hit on Upper Oregon Creek. So everyone's on board with what we have going on in that part of our watershed. And things are looking good there. Upper Oregon Creek, I'll have crews out there busting through snow next week, next Tuesday. I'll have a hand crew out there building street structures up on the Continental Divide. So that'll be interesting. But we made it before high runoff, so that's good. Yeah, lastly, I've been working on my, I'm presenting at the Montana Stormwater Conference in early May. And so this month I've been kind of working on my talk. I'm getting it with Morrison and Merrily, who've been a project partner and the engineers on a lot of the restoration projects that we've done in the French Creek drainage. And so, yeah, I've been working on that. Looking forward to sharing all of our work there. It's in Missoula. And yeah, that's about it. Any questions?
My questions, I just wanted to mention that
The Montana bioagricultural folks will be our presenters for our August meeting.
Sorry, Paul.
And I was just curious, how clean is the water in this particular, can you drink it?
That's a good question. My understanding was that they're testing for, at the time we were there, they were testing for calcium. And so it was clean for calcium.
It was getting so the reason they're doing calcium is because of just the sheer amount of it, and it's positively charged, 2 positive charges, I think.
That's right.
And so they were using that to test their system to see if the absorption is working. And in those pink little vials, those are their assays. It's a colorimetric assay that they use. So they're developing a way to, in field, they can go into one of their pits and into one of their test tubes and put a little strip, and that'll tell them how far down the road they are with cleaning the water. So they're getting all of the volumes and stuff ready for that. It went down, so the calcium started at 30 parts per million. They ran it through once, it went down to 20 parts per million. So it's working, and they haven't reached the breakthrough point. The breakthrough point is the point at which all of the metals have, or the mycelium has no more spaces for the metal to cling to. And they'll find that point, and that's the point when you need to replace your filter, basically, right? So they're dialing all of that in. But it works.
Yeah.
The cool thing about this is this process has been beaten to death in the lab. Like academics, there's plenty of published literature, but they've never done any test bigger than like a test tube size, because they've never tried to apply the science to an actual problem. So this is really, and these guys have been at this, they've done this stuff with Butte pit water in the early 90s.
They said you could.
Yeah, they ran Butte pit water through a similar process, and they had drinkable water at the other end. But when they went shopping this idea around, they just couldn't find anybody that would fund scaling up of this technology. And so this is, I think it's super interesting, because we're trying to apply something that's known from an academic setting. Now we're actually putting it to a real problem, and I'm super excited. Yeah, so that's a good question. Well, so the Elkhorn actually has a repository site just down the road. So they had a repository for the first remedy that they did 15 years ago. That site would likely be reopened. And I mean, that's the standard engineering approach, right? Just grab the dirty stuff, dig a pit, throw all your dirty stuff in there, cover it with soil and grow some grass. That's just as sophisticated as we get for mine reclamation. If we can get the volume down to something, it may even be worthwhile for some company to come and try to re-extract the metal. You know, we don't know yet, but reducing the volume substantially helps with the remedy down the road. We'll see. This is going to be, we're hoping to push just a combination of hard engineering with, you know, ecological, biological system. We'll see. That's the idea. Anything else? Okay. What's that? New business. Jim.
Thank you. I'm going to start working pretty hard on this cloud seeding. I know Department of Water Resources is helping fund put $700,000 into a deal on Bear Lake to one with Utah. San Diego's just put a contract out to redo their cloud seeding project down there. It's very interesting. There's a lot of good ideas and kind of the things to look at. It's something that we need to work on. If you're thinking out of the box, you can even put a cedar above fairly small drainage with an off-stream storage and seed that particular piece to get a lot of moisture and hold behind those dams. One of the issues we're dealing with where the most of your water is, you know, you get the rain. This cloud seeding gives you more rain or snow. Actually, it gives you more snow under our scenario. But if you don't manage the yield from the watershed, which means encroaching conifers, then you lose a lot of that effort. And you got to realize that we're dealing with these wilderness study areas in the Big Hole, which causes problems. I don't know, maybe get the backpackers to pack some more in the Big Hole. They like it so much, but I was at a conference in Pocatello. There was a man there from the University of Idaho named Savage that has come up with an idea in these high glacial hills or high glacial areas. The sediment covers that glaciated rock up, and so the water flows through it. And you could possibly drill through it and put big pipes going down to it and run high water into those areas and take the water out down below. There are a lot of novel ideas out there, and it's important that we look at it, and we're especially, and I'm glad we brought back up the dam deal. But you know, the way things are going, we need to get our head up and look around and start finding solutions instead of just saying no.
Jim's a one-man wrecking crew on this cloud seeding. We're, as you need, you know, we'll submit any requests for letters to, you know, to the board, and if everyone agrees, we'll sign off on support for, you know, initiatives as they get going. Okay, any other new business? We've got one item of new business. It's very exciting. We are, here we have a nomination for a new board member, Diane Hyden. Hello, welcome. And I'd like to put her nomination to a vote by the board. Does anyone who has been here before and done this before have a specific protocol you want to follow? Or is it just a yay? What's that? Does anybody disagree with Diane's nomination? I hear none. Diane, welcome to the board of the Big Hole Watershed Committee. Great to have you. Yeah, awesome. That's great. Now we're, all right. This is the first new board member we've had in a while, I think. Brian Wheeler's been on for a few years. Yep. Okay. Let's take a break if there's no other new business. And we'll come back in 10 and we'll have our weeds presenters. All right. Get some coffee and visit.
You're a pain in the ass. What's that? We don't actually vote. The burden is on anybody who doesn't want her on there to speak up. Nobody spoke up. She's on. We act by consensus. She's on. She's in. She's this person worked on her quite a while. Sierra Harris has to know her. You know Sierra Harris? She's must be maybe. Anyway, it looked like she was going to pipe up because she turned her camera on. But she didn't say it.
Cool. All right. Okay. You want TV?
You can do whatever you want. The meeting's still going. They're going to have a presentation on weeds. Jan Bowey to watch. And then Burch. I don't know that. No, they're fish packing. I don't know why I said that. Somebody's trying to back up for being such an asshole.
I know.
Are you worried?
I'm trying to let him up, but
You're an asshole.
you're not here to drink water out of the thing. I'm gonna watch Chicago's. You see them packing the big kind of watch Chicago computer. You not run away from home ever again.
Or I could not say that.
Or ever again. Do you understand?
Oh, Chicago PD?
Do you? You think that's. Don't love me, man. Just don't even know what to do about it. Yes. You can trade him in her. Hello, what are you doing? Oh my gosh, why are you not? Good. Good on you. Do you want Travis to come early in his house for you or something? Okay. Cool. Good. Oh yeah, she's actually excited. She said, how do you feel about your older brother? Do you want him or do you want him to stay home? Oh, oh my God. Do you believe your dog's gonna be there?
What's that?
You can't go to his sister's.
Oh, no.
I know.
You better go with you.
No.
Yep. Yep. He's going with you. Yep. No, we're still going this way.
He's just gonna have to stay home. We won't think about it. But I think so.
Hey, folks. We're back. We're back. Grab your cookies and your last coffees. I wish our meetings could be all chit chat, but where the most constructive conversations happen, but you know, we're here to learn about the weed control efforts going on in and around the Big Hole, and we'll kick it off with Mr. Jan Bowey.
Thank you, Pedro. For anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Jan Moodry. I'm the weed control supervisor for Butte-Silver Bow. It's nice to be back. So, you know, we've been kind of under the COVID thing for the last 2 years. Really, I've not attended many meetings or spray days or that kind of stuff. So it's really nice to be able to be in front of you guys tonight and being able to let you know what we're going to do this next year. I'm going to start out with probably an issue more than anything was the last 2 years was the drought, which you guys are very well aware of. And with the drought conditions and our spray seasons being extended, we have changed some of the things we normally do. Our approach is a little different. We are pushing off doing a lot more fall applications than we've ever done in the past because we have that window of opportunity. And with the budgets that we have, with the contracts that we have within Butte-Silver Bow, it's going to afford us to do a lot of different things in the spring. And in the springtime, what we're going to do this year is we plan on working on, for the Big Hole section, more than anything, Butte-Silver Bow properties. That means the water lines going through Fleecer, the county roads, any county-owned properties within the valley. Those are really going to be our concentration. We are kind of going to pull away from doing highway work this spring. We won't start doing highway work until July 1. And that's budgetary reasons because we spent a lot of money this last fall. We don't have any budget with MDOT for the spring work. So we'll start doing their work in July. So drought has changed what we do on a daily basis, as it has everybody in this room. So just, you know, just so everybody knows, we're going to do things a little differently. We do have 2 planned spray days right now in conjunction with U.S. Forest Service and Fish, Wildlife and Parks. One of them is on Fleecer. That one is June 29th. And that'll be, the staging area will be right here at the south entrance to the game range. And then on June 30th, we'll move farther north and we'll be in the high rye area. That will also include a lot of Anaconda Uplands with Fish, Wildlife and Parks. Please write those down. Anybody's welcome to come to those spray days. We do afford herbicide and what equipment we can to the landowners and try to make those, you know, like they used to be, where we used to have a lot of participation and we were actually able to participate. Last 2 years, because of COVID and our county rules, we weren't able to do that. So that, you know, it's nice to be back. Like I said, it's nice to be back working in the Big Hole, doing the things that we can do to help landowners out. The other thing that we have going on through the weed board, we are going to put Union Pacific Railroad's feet to the fire this year. I don't know, some of you may have got some survey information that the weed board sent out. Mr. Chris Chabot, who's my weed foreman, sent letters to adjoining landowners, anybody that owns property in Silver Bow County that is adjacent to the Union Pacific Railroad. And there were some simple questions on that. If anybody that didn't get that and is still wants to comment to us at the weed board, please get a hold of me, get a hold of Mark Cabbage. And if you have comments, if you have land that you either manage or you own, or you're working next to the Union Pacific Railroad in Silver Bow County. Hopefully it doesn't come to the point that we have to put them in non-compliance. It'll be the second time I think they've been putting non-compliance in the state of Montana. First time was this lady in the back row did it, so Amber did it, and we're following suit with her. But if the history tells its story, we're probably going to have to. But we need the support of the adjoining landowners and your comments. And even if this group wants to make a comment to us at the weed board, please do that. You support that project. That railroad runs in a pretty unique situation. It's bordering the river most of the way from here down to Melrose. And then it's along Divide Creek, very close proximity to Divide Creek, all the way to the Continental, over the Continental Divide. So we really need your help. A little history on that. We used to be a contractor to the Union Pacific Railroad. Butte-Silver Bow did. Through some arrangements we made with them, we started hiring a contractor. About 5 years ago, they would not let our contractor back on the railroad, even though they were certified safety-wise and everything they needed to go on there. The railroad wouldn't let them back on. So we've been fighting with them for 5 years, trying them to do what's right and be a steward of the land and take care of their property. And it's coming to this. And I didn't think I would ever get to this point in my career. I'm long in the tooth, been here for 25 years and never thought, but here we are. So other than that, like I said, we're planning spray days. I think Amber, do you have your list? She'll have her list. We'll participate in all the ones that Beaverhead County sponsors or organizes within the watershed. And I guess if there's any questions for me, I'm here. I answer my phone all the time. It's good to be back in business.
So when you say they're not in compliance, that they're bringing weeds up on the train and like dispersing them along the tracks as they come up from Idaho and Utah and stuff?
It's a great vector to transport weeds. Yes, it is. It's that they're not managing the weeds that are propagating and growing and going to seed on the property. There's two situations with the railroad. Through the Transportation Commission, they are mandated to have vegetation free within their ballast. And they spray that every year with a steroid. Now the outside areas, outside of their ballast, I have landowners in this room that can tell you are some of the worst places for weeds because it is a vector. Seeds are there all the time.
Whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, if you, yeah, just like you're raising water in milfoil. When it's hanging off your boat, you're taking it to the next one. So it's the same thing.
Explain how all that head ground supplies nutrients to that weeds.
How dead grass.
The dead ground, ground leaf is sterilized. It's supplying all the kinds of water.
Yeah, exactly what it's doing. But they're mandated that for fire reasons, and I get that, and safety reasons. I get that they're, the water and the runoff from the ballast is a great water resource.
And yeah, it is providing for weeds. If you notice, everything grows better next outside the valleys. I guess just to end this, drought affects weeds the same way it affects your grasses. We notice how they, when we're in a drought season, you guys aren't getting any grass, but the weeds aren't growing as bad. So it actually, it gives us a good window to treat weeds when we're out there doing it in a drought season. But if we get a flush of moisture, if we get rain, weeds are going to propagate just as fast as the grasses do. And the only good thing about drought is that it ends. It's going to eventually end, I hope. And on another note, I sit on the Mile High Conservation District. And every one of these studies, I've been involved in every one of these studies about high mountain storage, except in 1978. I was a senior in high school, so I have no idea what's going on. So that one day, but we totally support the Conservation District. We support high mountain storage in whatever manner it can be. We understand. I mean, you were at our last meeting, Pedro was at our last conservation meeting a month ago, and this topic comes up every month. And when it's in a drought season like this, it even comes up more. So we support you guys going forward with this. Hope it's not 15 years, hope it's quicker than that, but support it 100%. But try to find out, or try to find a place where we can store water. Glaciers, Jim, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I
think very extent glacier.
Yeah. We talked about, the cloud seeding, the storage, it's just, it affects everything. I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
Are there any other particular species that are out of the storage area along the Pacific that we should be concerned about, like Anaconda or?
We have not identified Anaconda. There is a identified patch, which is 7 years ago, we've not had a plant of Dyer's Wood, which is right on the Continental Divide, right at Feely. Basically, we're looking at Houndstown, leafy spurge, spotted knapweed, and
Don't forget my favorite weed.
now I hate it too. Orialism. But yeah, it is, but there are, I mean, I know for a fact that the Dyer's Wood came from the train. I mean, it had to. It's the same way it is at down the line. Yeah, and yellow star thistles right over the mountain. We get that. I'm checking. Dan is the one that got 11. So she has it. We did send a letter for the response. I was smart enough to send it to the first one. Yeah.
So for the railroad, the railroad adjacent property owners that you're looking to get in contact with, do they need to be like right next to the railroad or with the one on the,
We definitely make comments on that. You're close
Okay.
enough.
Oh, you know where I am.
I know where you live.
Okay.
I know where you live. You're close enough. Yeah. It's a rock and it's
Yeah.
right on. Yeah. No, what's your timing on this? It looks like we have a process where we send a notification letter first, and then we go to a certified letter. We don't want to do the notification letter too soon so that they can't, we want them to be able to go out and take care of it themselves. Don't know if they will or not. I
highly doubt it. If they can get, the way that the law works, if they submit a weed management plan to us, our weed board approves it, then we watch to make sure they implement it. If they don't implement it, then we go to the next step. So the time frame is between now and probably mid-May, and that new letter will go out. In fact, the weed board won't approve the first letter until the first week in May. So we've got some time.
How far do they own on either side of the tracks?
We're fairly narrow. Actually, when you look at it, Randy's got a pretty big wide piece that goes through his, but on average, probably narrowest is probably 70, 80 feet. Widest is probably 150.
On either side?
No, total width. And the normal track is 22 feet with the ballast. And they're in, like I said, they're in a terrible position. They're in riparian areas. I mean, where those tracks lie through this valley is not a good place. You're talking about animal kill. Eric knows it, but Randy drags more off the tracks down by his hayfield than anybody does on the highway.
All right. Get it off there, Amber. Or? Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna be short and sweet because I didn't even know about this meeting till Monday. So, my name is Mike Mooney. I'm with the Bureau of Land Management. I do most of the stuff for the Dillon Field Office. I basically cover from Divide South and from, well, I still call it Squaw Creek Bridge. I don't know what it is, what its new name is. But anyway, from there, south. So the section here through Wise River and that is handled out of the Butte office, so I can't answer too many questions as far as that's concerned. But what we've got planned this year is only a few projects other than the spray days that Amber has and our general weed control in the areas. But there was, there's been leafy spurge found, or not leafy spurge, sorry, Dalmatian toadflax found up Soap Gulch. And the infestation is just growing leaps and bounds each year. So this year we're going to put a concentrated effort to go up there and try and put as big a dent into it as we can to keep it from becoming established anywhere else. Also, was mentioned earlier about the restoration going on in the East Pioneers. Included with the conifer encroachment in future years, it won't be for another at least couple of years. They're going to do some prescribed fire too to help control that conifer encroachment. And along with that prescribed fire, we come in the fall after that prescribed fire and do cheatgrass treatments. We've got enough that we usually cover every acre that is burned, every acre gets treated for cheatgrass so that we don't propagate a cheatgrass infestation on top of anything that is already there. The stuff in Wisdom, that's going to be all, they're doing an assessment this year on all of the BLM ground in the Big Hole Valley. So we'll be assessing it for weeds, for everything else that goes along with it, riparian conditions. And you know, we have very limited presence in that one section of the Big Hole Valley. There's a few, I don't know what the total acres are, but and other than that, I wanted to mention that I know that some of you probably treat on BLM ground and don't, and you know, just absorb it. I can't do like the counties do and offer, what do you call it? Cost share, but I can offer you the herbicide. I can't match labor. But if you're going to do treatment on BLM ground, you can come into the office and you fill out just the same thing you do as if you're doing a water development or a fence or anything, just a little contract basically saying what you're taking out in herbicide. All I ask in return is that you return me application record just telling me where you treated. And like I said, we will furnish the herbicide that you need to treat on BLM ground, because the more eyes I have out there, the better. I realize that I'm a single person. I've got a crew of 6 and we cover almost 1 million acres. So it's tough for us to cover it all in 1 year by ourselves. Yes.
A plateau right now.
Plateau right now, the Mazopic. We're trying right now, there's a new herbicide out called Rejuvra. Its active ingredient is indazoflam. That's showing really good action, and it's being fast tracked as much as the government can fast track something to get so that we can use it. It's still going to probably be a couple of years out. So right now, the plateau or Mazopic is our best choice for the time being. It's okay, sure.
That's great. Thank you. All right. Well, not quite done after Amber, right? We've got Jan online, yeah.
All right, I'm not a huge fan of microphones, but bear with me. For some reason, a microphone just makes me nervous, and I don't know why, but it does. What's that?
I think we all
Do we? Okay, well, I'm not alone. Okay, good. So Amber Burch from Beaverhead County Weed District. I've been the weed coordinator. I think this is my 5th year as a coordinator, but I've been with the weed district for going on 22 years. So it's been a while that I've been in it. So if you're not aware, we do have a project that's been ongoing along the Big Hole River, along the corridor, and then also the Wise River corridor. We put in for a Noxious Weed Trust Fund grant each year. This year we were awarded a project for $25,000 to be able to have a commercial applicator working within a 100-foot corridor of the river. The last quite a few years, we've been mainly focusing on that Wise River section down to, is it Silver Bridge? This year, we're going to extend further downstream. So hopefully you guys in the Melrose and Glen area will see some more applicator presence along the river. So I hope that that's good news to you. And then we will probably be reaching out, or the contractor will be reaching out for access to be able to get on the river and do that work. So last year with that project, we did treat 275 acres along the river corridor, mainly of spotted knapweed, Houndstown borealism. There is some common tansy, and then oxeye daisy is the other big one that a lot of people think is beautiful, and it really is. It's very, very pretty flower, but the ability for it to spread, propagate, and take over an area is what makes it not so pretty when it gets into those meadows and those types of things. We also have some projects through the Resource Advisory Council, through the Forest Service, along the Scenic Byway and Triangle Gulch, Quartz Hill. So in 2020, we were able to treat 350 acres with a helicopter in Quartz Hill and Triangle Gulch. Very much needed. It's one of the worst knapweed populations that I know of in Beaverhead County. So this last year, we did some more ground application just to try to maintain and keep up that aerial application. We treated 43 acres. Quite a bit of knapweed in that area, and then also yellow-toed flax is the other big one, and then the Houndstown. We all hate Houndstown. I know Jim does. We also, for those folks that are more in the Wisdom area, we had another project on the west and north Big Hole. So pretty much from Twin Lakes Road to Music Broad, where our crews spent some extra time, and then we also had a commercial applicator that was treating those roadways in that area. They treated around 10 acres in that section. We're going to have that same project this next year. So if you're in that area or you're familiar with that area and you know of some problems, knapweed, whatever that's noxious weeds, please let me know so that we can get those commercial applicators, or we can get our crews to the right place and get those weeds treated. And then for those folks that are down kind of in that Melrose area, we also had a commercial applicator that did a little bit of work in like the Trapper Creek area. We're going to have that presence again. So if you know of some big areas that need some help, let us know so that, again, we can get those applicators in that area. So you may also have heard last year, we did not hold the Weed Whacker Ball because of the fires. and everything that was going on. And then that second round of that darn COVID hit kind of right at that time. We are tentatively scheduled for the Weed Whacker Ball this year, September 17th. So please put it on your calendars. Even without the fundraiser, we did have cash donations of a little over $7,500 that came in. So that's awesome. A lot of that money will actually go as match along the Big Hole River project, where we have that commercial on the corridor. So instead of being able to put out $25,000 for contract, I think this year we have like 32 or 36 that we'll put out for contracts. So that's part of what helps us be able to extend further downstream. So that's pretty awesome. So other plans for 2022, I've talked about most of them. We also have working with the Forest Service, so the Big Fires Trail and Alder Creek. I'm sure Jan will probably talk a little bit more about these. We're working on getting some money into the agreement to be able to offer some contracts out for weed management on those two fire areas, because we know that weeds are going to be a problem after fires. So I also brought for you guys, I'll pass these around. I should have probably passed them around earlier. List of spray days. So the first page, list of spray days, I think there's 13 or 14 that are within the Big Hole watershed. We encourage folks to come out and help us on those days. You can help us, we can help you. You know, bring your spray tank. We can fill that up for you. We can help you on some areas, those types of things. Then more importantly too, again, it's making sure that we're getting to the areas that we need to get to on those days. On the back page is a map that we put together. So this is from the river project, the weed points that have been taken over the years. That's on the back page. Talked about it a little bit. I also brought in the back, I kind of took over your guys' table a little bit. There's a little brochure on invasive grasses of Montana. So the big one to really pay attention to in here is the Anaconda. We kind of discussed it just briefly, but there has been Anaconda found in the Big Hole watershed around Wisdom. And then also I found a plant a couple of years ago in 2019, found a little bit along the Pioneer Scenic Byway. So we all think that cheatgrass is bad. Anaconda is the redheaded stepsister of cheatgrass. It's very high silica content. No domestic or wildlife will eat it. It's just too high of silica. So definitely that's one to read up on, have on your radar. The sooner that we can get it taken care of, the better. I also brought some noxious weed field guides. Yeah.
So what do you recommend if someone sees Anaconda, what they think is Anaconda? What's the protocol? Do you call someone? Do you just yank it out? What's the
it would be best if you can get a hold of somebody so that we can get a positive ID, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of it in the field, and so I'm not the greatest at identifying, but there are folks out there and resources we can get a hold of.
So go to you.
Yeah. Me,
go to your county
Mike,
person.
John, the county person. Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody that you can reach out to. Yeah. Yep.
Find out where it is. So
For sure.
Bring somebody back to it.
Yes, definitely. So there's also some noxious weed field guides. These are great to throw in your jockey box. Hopefully at some point in the fairly near future, we may have a Spanish version of this field guide for folks that have migrant workers, so that we can make sure that we're treating noxious weeds instead of having off-target damage and killing native species that are actually good for what we're doing. And then I also brought some 2022 scenic calendars. So if you need a calendar to hang on your wall, there's some weed information, but the main picture is just lovely pictures all across the state of Montana. So I'm gonna try not to take too much time because I can talk about weeds for hours. So I did bring a couple of Riker mounts. So brush skeleton weed is another one that should be a huge concern to folks, just for the ability of it to spread. This isn't the greatest Riker mount because it's dried up and has turned brown. Brush skeleton weed in the fall will be about the only thing that's green. You'll see on this Riker mount that one of the big problems with it is there's no leaf structure, so there's really not a very good way to kill it. But it does spread very, very quickly. The seeds travel like dandelion and float in the wind and can travel about 20 miles a year. So it has the ability to spread very, very quickly. Little tiny yellow flowers. And then another one that's coming at us that's going to be kind of a concern for mainly those folks in the Wisdom area is called blueweed. So Ravalli County has a large population of blueweed. It'll grow 4 feet tall. If you were to grab it with your bare hands, it would feel like fiberglass. It has kind of this little bluish flower with them like almost a fuchsia colored stamen that extends out of that plant. So these are just a couple of new invaders. There's other new invaders in that field guide, but anytime that you don't know what you're looking at, take a picture of it, shoot me a text. I'm more than happy to try to help identify a species for you. Yeah, EdMaps is a great phone app if you want to take a point if you're out, especially in the backcountry, and you come across knapweed or something. You can take a picture of it, have a map, a point, and I actually get an email with that picture and the point so that I can say, oh, well, there's knapweed in this spot. Another great app is the Seek app. It's Seek by iNaturalist. You just use the camera on your phone and kind of hover over a plant, and it will key in and identify the species. I don't know that it does as well with grasses just because it's harder to get yeah. So the first one is called EdMaps. There's EdMaps West, which pretty much you just take points. But if you're wanting to do some mapping of weed treatments on your property, there's another one called EdMaps Pro that you can plug in where you're treating on your property and then go back in the next year and bring those points up. It'll take you to them. And then you can mark that as, well, it's eradicated, so it's not there anymore, or now I have to treat it again. So then you mark it as treated. And so it will help you track those locations. So, yeah. Yeah, brush skeleton weed has been found in 3 different locations in the Big Hole. So Diane's husband, Bob, actually found the largest spot about 300 feet up the Mystic Lake trailhead. Out of no rhyme or reason, it's about a foot off the trail. At the time, in the first year, there was half a dozen plants or so, and then a few plants returned to the second year. Thankfully, we haven't found any since. But that's pretty alarming. Very likely it came in maybe on a pack animal. We're not sure. The other 2, one was just at the bottom of Carroll Hill, right there along the highway at the Hamilton Ranch. And then the third one was just onto BLM property off of Minor Lake Road. So kind of just spread out throughout the valley. But it's definitely one that we do not want to have. We don't want to, we think knapweed is bad. I think that one is worse. So, Houndstown, I'll just talk really, really quickly about Houndstown Bug, just because I know Jim really likes that, and we're all very, very, very hopeful that that bug will get here. So currently it's Mogollonus crucifer is the bug for Houndstown. It works very, very, very well in Canada. It has moved into Montana and it's kind of totally surrounding us in Beaverhead County. I'm hoping it's just a matter of finding it here. Currently, it's still listed as a pest, so we can't move it, we can't rear it. But they are working on submitting a petition to APHIS to be able, I think it's to APHIS. Yeah, to be able to get that delisted as a pest so that then we can start to use it as a biocontrol agent. I had the opportunity to go on I sit on the Noxious Weed Trust Fund Council. I went on a tour just outside of Phillipsburg at Georgetown Lake, where we went and visited one of the sites where they've had the Mogollonus bug. In the little area, they showed us a picture of the houndstown in that area the year prior, and it was totally covered. When we were back that year, there were only like 2 or 3 little rosettes that were coming up. It was pretty amazing. We actually went over across the road and found one knapweed plant or one houndstown plant. And when we pulled it up and looked at the root, we counted 12 larvae just in the picture that I took of that root. So we're crossing our fingers and our toes that we can get that here, because it truly will be a game changer for houndstown management. So there's maybe light at the end of the tunnel, some hope that we can cling to. Any questions?
Amber, years ago, we used to have shaker cans. We used to put on it. Is there any chance that use them again? You wouldn't use cord on it. Are there any chemicals that you use that you don't have to be certified for, that you can give to backpackers and stuff so they're going on these trails and stuff?
You know, I'm not sure. Mike, do you know of any?
The main reason they program chemicals is because there isn't a good way to manage the rate that you put it out. You know, you got to do it again, you might put it down at one rate here and then another rate there. It's really tough to regulate the rate on it. So I think that's why a lot of the chemical companies have stepped back from pushing that. But they can certainly help us out a little.
Yeah.
There is spike that works on weed species. We couldn't use that way, but it doesn't do much for knapweed. You just happen to dump some of the herbicide in this.
We didn't hear that. That was off the record. Any other questions?
You got your spray days on your webpage?
We don't yet, but we will. Yep. If you're a Facebook user, follow the Beaverhead County Facebook page. We try to post the upcoming spray days or photos from the spray day. We also try to post any educational events that we have coming up. Actually, next Tuesday, there's a training down in Lima. So if you need private applicator credits or you would like to learn more about weeds, we do have that. I want to say it's 4 credits, 3 or 4 credits that will be available for that. Centennial Valley Association, which partners with you guys on some projects, they're supplying lunch. So if you want to attend, let me know and I'll put you on the list. We're going to have Jane Mangold talking about weeds and drought and kind of how that interaction is changing some things and things to think about. Claire Volk with, what's that? Corteva will be there. So Corteva is the old Dow. They have some new chemistry that's coming out. So she's going to be there to talk about it. Melissa Maggio is going to be there. Melissa grew up in Dillon. She's the state biocontrol coordinator. So she's going to be talking about some Canada thistle rust. That's going to hopefully be available. Right now it's in the experimental stage, but if you've got some Canada thistle areas you'd like to try some, there's maybe an opportunity there. And then she's also going to be talking about the Mogollonus, so that the Houndstown Bug. And I can't remember what the last one was. Oh, Clint Saunders is going to be there about water quality, testing your water to make sure that you're getting the highest efficacy out of your herbicide, and there's not something in your water that's maybe making your herbicide not work quite as well as it should. So we will hopefully have a training in this area, Wise River Wisdom, this coming fall. With COVID, things kind of got put on a halt, and then usually we have several in Dillon, and with the 4-H building being out of commission, we just haven't got those dates set up yet, so. But that Lima training is, I think it's gonna be a good one, a lot of fun. 26th, Tuesday, yeah. Cool. All right, well, I think I've talked long enough unless there's more questions.
I just got a comment. As far as herbicides go, we did do our herbicide bid. It's looking like most of the herbicides we use are something things. So that's gonna tell you, most of them are gonna be about 30% more in price, and we're not sure where availability is gonna be. Any of you guys that know that are dealing with fertilizer, herbicides the next one down the line. So if you can get herbicide, get it sooner than later. This is my recommendation.
All right. Okay, thanks, everybody. And so last but not least, we have Jan. All right, Jan, I'm going to set the microphone up to the laptop, so you should be good to go.
Okay, is that working for you guys?
Yes, I think so. Go ahead, Jen. Let me see if I can hear you. Oops.
Okay, let's give her a shot. Are you able to hear me? Not sure we're getting through. Oh, it's working. Okay, excellent. Okay, thanks, Tana, for tracking me down and inviting me to this meeting. I'm the Range and Invasives Program Manager for the entire forest. So normally this discussion would be held by Katie Bonagoski. They're at a Wise River, but she's currently on a detail assignment in New Mexico. So I'm going to try to pinch hit for her today. And I'm going to follow up a little bit on some of the discussion that Amber said, I'll start with Ventonata, because I just did my first sighting of that. Fortunately, it was not in Montana. I was in southern Utah last weekend and was hiking along a riparian area, and my brain said, what is that cheatgrass doing growing along the stream? Because water in southern Utah is hard to find. And I found some, but there was this odd looking cheatgrass growing there. And since you guys all know what cheatgrass looks like, my brain kicked in, what is it doing growing next to the water? And it looks odd. And I pulled some of it and took it into the St. George BLM office, and it was Ventonata. So it was accidental, but just because you all are very familiar with cheatgrass, if your brain says that's weird looking cheatgrass, especially if it's growing in an area where you wouldn't expect to see cheatgrass. I mean, southern Utah's got plenty of dry country for cheatgrass to grow in. This was very limited. It worked well for me. It was for them an unknown population. And I just kind of stumbled across it, and my brain said, that's weird looking cheatgrass. So that may be a go-to method for you. It worked for me. I'm incredibly excited about the biocontrol for Houndstown. Like Amber explained, the project near Georgetown Lake was incredibly successful, so much so that the researchers actually called me and said, we need a new research plot because the Houndstown is like gone. And they're concerned that it may move on to a borage. It's a bluebell, a native species. It did not do that in the Georgetown Lake area. I found them a new spot over out of Ennis that had the same bluebell, the same borage growing in the area. Melissa Maggio showed up to do the release there and do the research, and the bug was already there. So they didn't do it. We're waiting to see if it will wipe out that population of Houndstown like it did the others, and then not move on to that bluebell. So I'm very excited because it is just, normally our biocontrol agents kind of thin things out. This like darn near killed it all, which is new. And I'm very excited with that. What I'm less excited about is Melissa Maggio did several surveys. She went to do releases on yellow toadflax in the Wise River area. She found the beetle already there, which is good. So she didn't do the releases because the bug was already there. In the Boulder area specifically, we're finding where we have Dalmatian and yellow toadflax occupying the same site, that the species are hybridizing. And we've got a couple Dalmatian toadflax biocontrol agents and a couple yellow toadflax, and they won't touch the hybrid, which is very disheartening. So in those areas, we're actually selecting for a hybridized yellow Dalmatian toadflax because the biocontrol agents aren't touching it. Yeah, it's disheartening. That's all I got. And I will say to the north, the Big Hole area, that whitetail pipestone, Boulder area, Delmo Lake area up out of Butte, the yellow toadflax is going insane. It is rapidly expanding. So just watch that one. Once it gets a foothold, it's just going nuts. So I just had to add those little biocontrol agent things in. I was going to show you guys some maps. I completely failed at getting my map program to work today, so you don't have any maps. We sprayed on the Wisdom Ranger District last year, 1,400 acres. That's about a 25% increase. Of that, about 85% of those acres were spotted knapweed. The remainder of it was split between oxeye daisy and houndstown. And there's some other species thrown in there, but they're not large enough acre sizes that the percentages are working on it. We're just like the guy from Butte-Silver Bow was talking about, we're seeing very successful late season sprays into October. And we've kind of bumped a lot of our aerial spraying into October. I'm concerned about that. I'm actually a Beaverhead County high school graduate. I'm aware that normally October, there's a lot of snow in the mountains. It hasn't been doing that lately. Or we've been able to literally spray in between snowstorms. That seems with milestone on spotted knapweed to be extremely effective. And I have no research to back this on. This is just personal observation. I think in October, the knapweed is still green, so it's highly susceptible to the herbicide. And what we're seeing the following summer is the native forbs are bouncing back. And I think it's because they're dormant at the time we're spraying. The balsam root, the lupine, the yarrows, the sunflowers are immediately coming back, and the knapweed is not. And it looks like we're getting about 3 or 4 years off those aerial sprays before we have to start repeating that. We're trying to get a project together again to retreat fleecer. Part of that is we did that, so it tied in with the game range, and they have lost some of their funding. So we're trying to pull that together and see if we can get something. But that late season aerial spray we did on fleecer lasted us about 4 years. As Amber said, we got some wonderful RAC funding that we're processing through the Beaverhead County agreement, and Amber's crews or subcontractors are going to spray those for us. That's partially a shift in priorities and a change in just the availability of equipment that we have to purchase and employees, just covering enough areas. So Amber through Beaverhead County is going to spray a lot of our primary access routes. I'd like to recognize Amber for that. She also has to cough up a matching 20% contribution to that. So it adds an administrative burden on top of her. She can also get contracting done far faster than we can. Our contracting takes at least a year, and it's very expensive. For aerial sprays, Amber can get it done for about 50% of the cost that I can, which means we can fund twice the acres. So it's a good deal as long as we can continue to string Amber along. Our priorities this year are going to trend towards treating our burned areas, as you're where we've got a lot of it. When you remove that overstory canopy of those trees and dump all that nitrogen on the ground, the noxious weeds that were present perhaps in small amounts just kind of have a heyday, and they're aggressive and they take off on us. In the past, we received special funding for burned areas for 1 year. So we get special funding to treat noxious weeds for a year. I've always found that very frustrating because as we all know, if you only treat 1 year, it's kind of like laying dollar bills out on the ground if we don't come back. But we were able to tap into some of the new disaster funding. And I've got funding to treat for an additional 4 years. So we will be able to treat those noxious weeds in those burned areas for 5 consecutive years. And I'm hoping that will allow us to knock the weeds back to the roads, where we're going to have a constant weed problem there just because of the continual motorized use on those roads and the human presence on those roads. But if we can knock it back to the roads, it will be easier to handle. That funding also includes on about year 3 post-fire, I want to do some biocontrol releases on some noxious weed sites deep within the interior of those burned areas where we're just not likely to treat on a regular basis. If we can get those biocontrol agents in there, at least they're working every year, where we may just physically not be able to get that deep into the backcountry on a regular basis. So that's our plans. What that will come with is a decrease in what I refer to as treatment of our normal acres. The season's only so long and we can only get to so many areas. So some of our roads, some of our campgrounds are not going to get treated as heavily because we're shifting the priority to those burned areas. It just, like I said, it's just a matter of time and personnel and equipment. The other area that we will, and Amber is helping us out a lot, even with ground contracting. She can just hire contractors a whole lot faster than we can. And especially in their burned areas, it's hard to, the fires didn't go out until October. I can't issue a contract that says, well, go out and find some weeds, because there's probably some out there, and spray them. Contractors don't do that. Contractors want you to draw a line around the weed infestations that they're supposed to spray. When I don't know where they are, I really can't contract them. By working through Amber, once we identify those patches, then we can get the contractors to come in for quicker. Because like I said, for my process, it takes about a year to even get the contract issued. So there's a huge delay there. So that's a huge advantage for us. The other thing I've got here is we are starting, in case y'all haven't noticed, we haven't been doing a whole lot of timber harvest for like a couple decades. That is increasing. We've got a fairly large veg treatment project that we're calling Pintler Face, that runs basically from Pintler Creek up into that Deep Creek area. We'll offer those timber sales and some of that work in 3 stages that will start this fall. From a noxious weed standpoint, we're planning on, and again, it's a change in priority. We want to treat those areas before they're harvested or burned to knock down the existing infestations, especially along the roads. What we're finding is when the timber sale contractors come in and maintain that road so that it's suitable for large log trucks, that ground disturbance just flushes the weed seeds that are already on the edges of the road. I refer to it as like rototilling your garden, right? You rototill your garden and about a week later, you do it again because you got all your weeds seeds flushed. It's the same thing. And so we're seeing that about a year after the timber sale starts. And I really think it's not necessarily associated. Some of it is associated with that increased traffic, but I really think it's more associated with the road maintenance work that stirs up that shoulder and it just literally flushes the seeds. So if we can treat that for 2 to 5 years immediately after that work is done, if we flush those seeds again, we knock back the existing infestation. We're not likely to eradicate it, but we are likely to reduce it a lot. So that's what I had on my list. I guess if anybody's got questions, I can try to field those. But the big thing is you will see kind of a shift in priority towards those fire burned areas for about the next 4 to 5 years. I can't hear you. Got it. Thanks. Yes, and I was hearing you earlier, so when I started talking, I guess I got shut out somehow. You're back now that everybody's leaving.
Right, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
That's so weird. I don't know what the heck happened. Thank you so much, Jan, though.
You bet. Thanks for letting me attend by Zoom. I live over in Sheridan, so it was convenient, although I'm not as tough as Hans. When I saw him walk by, I was like, no, I feel good.
Yeah. No, it's okay. We're getting pretty used to doing this Zoom thing, so it makes it easier for folks to join us. So I really appreciate you staying up late for us.
Oh, no problem.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
You bet.
Bye-bye.